Ukraine from Putin's aggression, uniting and expanding NATO, and positioning America to compete with China and win. I've seen countless times how deeply and personally this Commander-in-Chief cares about our troops, our veterans, and our military families. Now, the President is intensely focused on the work ahead, especially ending the war in Gaza and reinforcing Ukraine's capabilities for the long haul and making our posture in the Indo-Pacific even stronger. And this department will continue to do what we always do: stay firm and stay focused, because we've still got a lot to do. And as we move forward, the entire department salutes the President's life of service. Now, as you all know, it's been a busy time here. We're moving quickly from the historic 75th anniversary NATO summit to my departure tomorrow for my 11th trip to the Indo-Pacific. So since we're in between these two major events and halfway through 2024, I wanted to take a step back. And I wanted to look at the progress that we've made over the past 3.5 years, especially when it comes to NATO and the Indo-Pacific. Now, it's worth remembering where we were when I started as Secretary back in 2021. The pandemic was raging, autocrats were emboldened, NATO and our alliances and partnerships across the Indo-Pacific were frayed. So the Biden-Harris administration came into office determined to restore American leadership and to invest in the greatest fighting force on earth and to reinforce the global network of allies that makes us stronger and safer. And that's exactly what we've done. And we've shown that American leadership gets results for the American people. Just look at our most important alliance. Today, NATO is larger than ever, stronger than ever, and more united than ever. And over the past 3.5 years, we've seen an historic increase in annual defense spending across the alliance by $80 billion. All NATO allies have agreed to spend at least 2% of their GDP on defense. In 2021, only 6 allies did so. But in 2024, a record 23 NATO allies will hit the 2% spending goal. And beyond NATO, our bonds with our allies and partners are deep and strong. Putin's outrageous invasion of Ukraine and the tragic Israel-Hamas war have meant sustained communication and consultation with my counterparts, with an intensity that few secretaries of defense have ever matched. I have calls with many of my fellow ministers of defense every week or every month. And the Ukraine Defense Contact Group that I lead has kept some 50 defense leaders worldwide in close touch at a truly historic tempo. And these frequent touch points have produced vital capabilities for Ukraine. They've also spurred our friends to help shoulder the burden, and they've strengthened America's security. Now, let me talk about what that kind of sustained engagement has meant in the Indo-Pacific, which is our priority theater of operations. As you know, I'm wheels up tomorrow morning for important meetings with Secretary Blinken and our allies in Japan and the Philippines. Now, I know that it's easy to focus on the crisis of the day, but just look at what our strategy has achieved in the Indo-Pacific over the past 3.5 years. We're nearly doubling our military construction investment in the Indo-Pacific from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24. Ties with Australia and India are stronger than ever. We've improved our relationships with Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, Papua New Guinea, and many more. In Japan, we're in the process of forward stationing a Marine Littoral Regiment, the most advanced formation in the Marine Corps. And just a few weeks ago, we announced a plan to station our most advanced tactical aircraft in Japan, reflecting more than $10 billion of capability investments. And meanwhile, Japan is making historic investments in its defense spending. And Japan and the ROK are taking some truly historic strides forward together. But there's no greater example of our progress in the Indo-Pacific than the Philippines. When I started Secretary, our ties with the Philippines were at a low point. We were even on the brink of losing our decades-old visiting forces agreement. But after 3 years of intensive engagement and partnership, we are in an entirely new chapter of our alliance. Last year, GOS agreed to include 4 new locations under our Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. We've expanded our rotational access thanks to the leadership of President Marcos and Secretary Teodoro. And we're taking unprecedented steps to help modernize the Philippine military. So I very much look forward to going back to the Philippines and to Japan. I visited both countries just last year. In Tokyo, Secretary Blinken and I will hold a 2+2 meeting with our Japanese allies. And in Manila, we'll hold another 2+2 with our counterparts from the Philippines. Again, proud of America's historic achievements with these great allies over the past 3.5 years. And it's amazing what the United States, Japan, and the Philippines have done together in just the past 6 months. With Japan, we've made significant improvements to our force posture. We've also worked more closely than ever with the Republic of Korea. And I'm proud that Minister Kihara and I sit down in Tokyo with Minister Shin for an historic trilateral defense ministerial, the first ever to be held in Japan or the ROK. All of this just underscores the new convergence in the Indo-Pacific that I talked about in Singapore last month. We're not just strengthening our bilateral alliances, we're also seeing our regional partners come together like never before around our shared vision of a free, open, and secure Indo-Pacific. So it's going to be a great trip, and we're going to deliver even more progress. And with that, I'll turn it over to General Brown.
Well, thank you, Secretary Austin. Good morning, everyone. On a warm day, October day in 1937, President Franklin Roosevelt addressed a crowd on the Outer Bridge Drive in Chicago. And he said, "Those who cherish their freedom must work together for the triumph of law and moral principles in order that peace, justice, and confidence may prevail in the world." President Roosevelt knew that we could not turn a blind eye to nations who violate treaties, international law, and the sovereignty of their neighbors. He knew that unchecked aggression only leads to more aggression. Our national defense strategy lays out 5 key challenges: the People's Republic of China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and violent extremists. All 5 of these challenges are active today, and they're increasingly interconnected. The PRC is undermining the international order, using economic coercion, military buildup, technology advancements to challenge our interests and those of our allies. Russia continues its aggression with its war in Ukraine. Iran persists in its malign and destabilizing activities across the Middle East. North Korea remains a significant threat with its continued development of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. And violent extremists continue to exploit ungoverned spaces, fragile states, threatening regional and global stability. These increasingly interconnected threats demand a coordinated and strategic response from the international community. And importantly, we must leverage all the strengths and capabilities of the United States and of our allies and partners. Our most valuable strategic advantage is that we never fight allies and partners. Our most valuable strategic advantage is that we never fight alone. From the very founding of our nation, when the military assisted 13 upstart colonies in gaining their independence, to the beaches of Normandy, to the coalition to defeat ISIS, our respective national plans and capabilities with allies and partners as an afterthought. We must start at the beginning with the mind. We need to be integrated by design. Over the course of the past month, I've had the opportunity to visit several allies and partners around the world to underscore our desire to work in concert and coordinate closely with one another. At the end of June, I went to Botswana to attend the African Chiefs of Defense Conference, the first time that conference was held on African soil. 2 weeks ago, as the Secretary highlighted, we were privileged to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Washington Treaty, at the NATO summit here in Washington, D.C. 13 allies came together to celebrate 75 years of peace. We reaffirmed our commitment to collective defense and our shared values of democracy and the rule of law. Russia hoped their invasion of Ukraine would fracture and weaken NATO. Our alliance is stronger and more unified than ever. We've expanded and welcomed Finland and Sweden, and we continue increasing collective capability and operability, further improving the history's longest and most successful alliance. The NATO summit also included leadership from Japan, Republic of Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, demonstrating that our collective security is not limited to region or one continent. Security in one region contributes to security in another, which is why last week I traveled to the Philippines and Japan to meet with key leaders and strengthen multilateral relationships in the Indo-Pacific region. I had the opportunity to meet my counterpart and other officials in the Philippines, and we held a historic meeting of chiefs of defense of the Republic of Korea and Japan in Tokyo for the first ever Tri-Chad meeting in Northeast Asia. Our work with these allies is critical to maintaining stability in the Indo-Pacific and to counter growing influence by the PRC. En route to the Indo-Pacific region, I also visited the Ted Stevens Center for Arctic Security Studies in Anchorage, a DoD regional center that addresses strategic implications of current and emerging Arctic security challenges. On a related note, the Department of Defense released its 2024 Arctic strategy this past Monday. That strategy lays out the steps we will take to safeguard the Arctic, defending our homeland, and keeping the region stable and secure. The strategic security of the Arctic must be intentionally thought through today to determine what capability and capacity will be needed in the future. Arctic, or the Indo-Pacific regions, or in Africa, navigating and evolving security challenges depends on integrating and collaborating closely with our allies and partners. Because President Roosevelt's words hold an enduring truth. Those who cherish freedom and peace must stand united. Progress will not always be swift, but if the past 75 years have taught us anything, it's that achieving a stable, just, and prosperous world requires the work of all of us. Our alliances and partnerships are our greatest strengths, and together we will continue to build a safer, more peaceful world. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you both, gentlemen. First question will come from Associated Press. Lita Valdor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Russian and Chinese bombers were off Alaska yesterday. I'm wondering if you could talk to us about what threat you think that growing cooperation is to the U.S. and also particularly to the allies in Asia who were very concerned with this growing activity. And for you, Mr. Chairman, the President himself expressed some disappointment in the pier and the aid that it was able to bring into Gaza. Now that that is gone, what, if any, military involvement do you see, U.S. military involvement, do you see as necessary or not in helping to get continued aid into that area where obviously Palestinians are still starving?
Thanks, Lita. Regarding the Russian and Chinese aircraft that flew together in the north here recently, this was not a surprise to us. We closely monitored the issues here at the podium. But again, it's the first time that we've seen these two countries fly together. It's the first time that we've seen these two countries fly together like that. They didn't enter our airspace. I think the closest point of approach was about 200 miles off of our coast. So, but this is a thing that we track very closely. We're able to intercept, and if it happens again, if there's any kind of challenge from any direction, I have every confidence that NORTHCOM and NORAD will be at the ready and will be able to intercept. In terms of the relationship between Russia and China, this is a relationship that we have been concerned about throughout, mostly because we're concerned about China providing support to Russia's illegal and unnecessary war in Ukraine, and we sense of that, and we would hope that that would cease going forward. But again, we'll see what happens and how this relationship continues to develop. We will remain focused on protecting the homeland here, and again, I applaud the efforts of NORTHCOM and our great airmen who are always at the ready.
Let me just echo the applause, really, for the nearly 1,000 service members over the course of since the time they've been operating there in the Mediterranean. And so, what I would tell you is that the 20 million pounds of humanitarian assistance to help the citizens of Gaza, we continue to we moved all that forward. At the same time, the elements that we'll be able to put in place, some of the coordination elements, and the flow from Cyprus, also the ground movement through Jordan. Many of those things we'll continue to work on, and so the coordination elements that we're putting in place that will continue to sustain and support as we transition this capability of humanitarian assistance through other means, whether it's through land means, through Jordan, but also through the port of Ashdod there in Israel.
Okay, next question will go to Fox. Jennifer.
Secretary Austin, just to follow up on the Chinese and Russian warplanes. The Chinese and Russians put out video bragging about this mission, so clearly it was a propaganda effort. The leader of the Houthis also bragged overnight that the drone that struck near the U.S. consulate in Tel Aviv flew 1,400 miles undetected. Are you concerned that the raucous political turmoil and election and the decision of the president to step aside is leading to adventurism and miscalculation by America's adversaries? Are they testing the U.S. right now? And General Brown, yesterday Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said he wants the U.S. to deliver weapons to Israel faster. He also said that the ratio of civilian casualties to Hamas combatants killed in Gaza is the lowest in the history of urban warfare. Is that true?
Thanks, Jennifer. As to whether or not our adversaries are testing us at this particular time, they're always testing us, and that's no surprise to any of us. We see activity in the north on a number of occasions, and we are always at the ready to address that activity. And in terms of the Houthis, as you know, they've been focused on successfully launching an attack on Israel. And this one drone that was able to get through is something that it happened, but again, it did. When you fact that they have tried to attack Israel some 200 plus times, and this one got through, I think it speaks to the remarkable air defenses that Israel has. But again, we will see challenges from adversaries throughout, and I don't think that particular point in time is any different. I think we'll continue to see this going forward. It's just the nature of who they are and what they do. But again, we have the world's greatest military, most capable military, and we will continue to protect this nation.
General, I'll tell you, we've as a nation and as a military, we've provided capability for Israel to defend itself before 7 October, but also after 7 October. And after 7 October, we rushed a number of capabilities into to the Israelis, save recently one shipment of 2,000-pound weapons. And we'll continue to support with the Israeli with munitions. To the Prime Minister's comments on the ratio, I've not seen the numbers to validate or invalidate what he said. But I will tell you, in every one of my conversations with my counterpart, I do talk about the aspect of minimizing civilian casualties and pushing humanitarian assistance into Gaza as they conduct their military operations.
So you're not withholding or slowing weapons to Israel right now?
We're not.
Okay, let's go across the room here to Washington Post.
Gentlemen, thanks for your time today. Mr. Secretary, the Pentagon for more than a year has been examining what the definition of a Gold Star family should be. And it's an emotional topic for people on both sides of the issue. Can you explain where you stand on this issue, whether you support a broader definition that includes not only families of those killed in combat, but also accidents, suicides, and other health crises? Mr. Chairman, despite efforts to stop the Houthis from attacking, global shipping remains mostly stymied in the Red Sea statistically. Do you